Foal Necromancer by Kytranis. Chapter 1. Equestrian Landing. I hover in almost total darkness. The last of my clothing nothing more than rotted black rags hanging off my starved and abused frame. I stare in wonderment and joy at my latest creation. A modified phylactery. It is in the shape of a glass orb and glows with white light. I brush a tangled iron-grey lock of hair out of my sight, and I continue to examine the salvation the size of my thumb. Doing this, I barely pay any attention to my near-skeletal hands that holds the orb, or my breath that comes in and out, slowly, in ragged wheezes. An unnaturally long life of abuse and persecution has long stripped me of my health. Only my natural-born magic and sheer burning will to live has kept me alive. "Evil wretch! We're here for your head!" a man screams out. I take a second to press my phylactery into my forehead, and it vanishes into my skin without seams. During this movement, the base of my palm brushes against the dirty linen bond of my empty eye sockets. All light in the room vanishes a few moments, and a few moments later, a small group of lights rush into the room. They spread out, and to give the chamber a soft red glow. I frown when an elderly man in red and cyan robes marches in. He's shortly followed by a young woman in white and yellow. A knight in plate mail armor bearing a red dragon and golden lion crest charges in shortly afterwards, and I can feel that there is another slinking through the shadows. So, 4 more fools seek to challenge me. At least I had a month alone this time, I say with some pain. My dry voice rattles off the walls in a bone-chilling echo. "No matter what distance you hide, the Holy Empire will find you. You will pay for enslaving the souls of the dead," the knight shouts with an echoing effect. It is entirely due to his bucket helmet. I can't help but snicker a little at the sheer stupidity of the man's headwear before calmly deflecting a thrown knife. There's a skilled thief circling behind me now, but as well as he can hide his body from the sight of a human, the enchanted senses I have pick him out with the same ease as his highly visible companions. I'm tired of explaining myself to an empire of murderers and slavers. If you are to fight me, then come at me. But know this, fool. Like so many times before, even as you take my head, I shall be spirited to safety, I calmly say, as I force out my magical aura to empower my spells, and hopefully scare off anyone with a sense of both magic and self-preservation. The lights in the room dim as a sheer rushing voice, detectable only in the absence it creates, sweeps into the room. "We're ready for your evil! Now!" the knight bellows, rushing forwards and pulling his sword from its sheath. As he does so, I'm a little surprised to feel a rush of magic from his sword, shield, and armor of the knight all at once. The blade has some form of anti-shield, designed to execute spellcasters. The shield will drink magic, and the armor increases the knight's speed to a blur. Impressive, I admit, and calmly raise a hand, then focus my will. This causes a massive blast of wind to erupt and hurl the knight backwards. I feel more magic behind me, and I now realize just how well prepared these people are. Soul drinkers are flying at me, so I shoot upwards and barely dodge a pair of knives spitting through the air, glowing with ominous red light erupting from each. This explains their coloration choice for the room lighting. I then feel a massive burst of necromancy shooting towards me, and I raise my left hand to catch it. Before it makes contact, a massive force slams against my aura, so I crush the spell as it reaches my hand, and channel its energies to shatter the one attacking my aura. Most impressive. Swords of barriers death, shields of spell drinking, armor of the hair, daggers of soul drinking, the word of death intoned without incantation, and a massive spell shattering. You are prepared, I say with a bit of a nod. After all, credit where credit's due. "We are more than prepared, you evil bastard!" the young cleric growls out. I must admit that I am shocked at the surprising use of language from the young woman. Doesn't her church have a taboo against slander? That you are, but so am I. Crash! I command, almost grinning at the thought of these idiots panicking as the entrances and exits collapse. There is a rumbling sound, then nothing. Oh, someone found my runes. The old wizard grins at this. How entertaining, I continue. Then I flicker my will to the man behind me, and the thief begins choking. Yet irritating, I say, and clench a fist focusing power into the movement. A crunching sound is heard behind from the thief and his neck snaps. But I'm not done, and his bones vanish to the aether of my aura. I sneak them towards the wizard as the thief falls to the ground as a puddle of flesh and muscle, mercifully dead. "You bastard!" Ah! The wizard starts to shout as I insert the thief's bones into the outline in his aura and phase them back in. I've stabbed him in hundreds of places before fusing foreign bones to his skeleton and destroy the joints. "Vrisin Sranor Krotai Isunia Daruka," the elderly man begins mumbling. I can't place the words before needing to dodge a lance of light from the young woman. "You irredeemable monster!" she screams, and dozens of blades made of only holy light and fire fill the upper part of the room. That forces me to the ground, where I'm quickly hard-pressed to dodge the knight. "I'm the monster! You travel across the world on a mission of murder and grow affronted when I defend myself? What insolence!" I mock, as I try time and again to activate numerous different runes without words, to no avail. These bastards have been very thorough, but I still have a few more aces. "Die, wretch!" the knight bellows as he swings faster and faster at me, until I catch his sword arm and hold it steady and hard. I can only imagine this musclehead's expression. The fact that a man made mostly out of bones is physically overpowering him must be galling. "You must be deafening yourself in that ridiculous excuse for a chamber pot when you shout," I note dryly, using the knight as a living shield from the infuriated cleric. Still, ask yourself something. Outside of my offences with necromancy, which I keep well away from other people, and my spat with Saint King Leonidas I, what crimes have I truly committed? Murder in self-defense, resisting arrest, fleeing the border, thefts of foodstuffs and cloth. Am I really such a martyr that the Assassin's Guilds, the Holy Order of Blessed Knights, the Sur Witch Academy of Magic, and the Church of the Holy Fire would set aside their differences for? "Keep your forked tongue behind your teeth!" The knight grits out, trying to gain ground but failing. His arms are starting to shake, which I find kind of funny. "How many times did you tell the assassin that?" I ask mockingly, and the knight bellows in rage. Then his strength quintuples with a rush of magic, and I'm thrown back just shy of the far wall. "What in hellfire?" I ask, shocked, and a massive rush of magic from right behind me stabs me right in the head. The sheer amount of power being brought into the effect is overwhelming my magic sense. "No!" I shout, and catch the charging knight by punching the shield the knight had been hoping to ram me with so hard that it cracks. Then I grab his sword by the blade and shatter it with raw strength before throwing the large man back, just in time for the soul-drinking daggers to embed themselves in my stomach and begin devouring my magic wholesale. I pull the now blood-drenched daggers out of my freshly skewered stomach, just in time for a concussive wave of light and fire to cause me to stagger back to the edge of the newly formed portal. "Evil wretch!" The knight screams out, and my magic senses clear just in time to notice the shield, which knocks me backwards into the hole in space and time. Annuals! The pained wizard wheezes out, and the portal shatters with no destination chosen. So I begin falling, unable to maintain my flight spell with so much magic lost to the daggers and sheer trauma. I fall downwards in the dark light between worlds. I feel the substance of absence surrounding me as I mentally restock the situation. Then, I start laughing. I can't stop laughing as I nearly bend in half while falling, my own insane-sounding cackles echoing back at me. The idiots! They delivered me beyond the reach of their pathetic empire and wretched false gods. I'm glad that I finished modifying my phylactery, I mutter, smiling to myself before focusing. I'll need a realm rife with magic for the modification to work, I mutter, as I gather what's left of my magic around myself and slam into dimensional barriers with all the force I can, killing my current body and hurling it into the new world. There's a flash of a snow-covered castle, a city upon the side of a mountain, and a small wooden area within the city before I slam into the ground. All is darkness and cold. If I die of hypothermia before I can build another phylactery, then I have truly met my end. I can't wake up. I'm so cold. I can't wake up. It's so cold. Something's got me. I still can't move. I've been put on a horse and I'm moving fast. It's warm now. Am I safe? I can't wake up. They've put me in a bed. They've stabbed me! I can't wake up. I feel a spell on me. I'm falling into a deeper sleep. I fade in slowly, uncomfortably. I have a massive headache and my back feels like I've got a knife just under each shoulder. I'm lying on my stomach and my hunger is near mind-numbing. I also feel like I've fallen down the side of a mountain and bounced all the way to the base, but that's normal. There's a sound of nearby horses, and I'm in what must be the softest and warmest linens I've ever felt. My robes and eye bandages are gone. Am I in a society of perverts? I try to reach out with my extra senses, but my head throbs in sheerest agony at that. Well, this is charming. Where am I? I ask, and I push myself up to a seating position with my legs crossed. I am more than a little surprised to hear a very small child's voice. It seems that I had made a few mistakes in the modification of my phylactery. I had intended to be reconstructed as an adult male of a vastly different appearance and aura to myself, so as to be hidden from any detectors. It appears that I turned out as a child instead. And it didn't regenerate my eyes either. Both annoying, but I can deal with annoying. There's the sound of a horse approaching, but I ignore it in favor of placing a hand on my head. What I feel shocks me. My limb ends in a sharp stump. Furthermore, my head is covered in soft fur. That, and I can clearly feel a few of my scars through the fur. Have I not been healed of anything? The horse is still approaching. I ignore it further. An animal cannot help me at this point. I've lost my eyes, now my fingers, and maturity as well. Survival just became a whole new level of difficult. The fur may help though, seeing as how it can keep me warm. Good morning, dearie. How are you feeling? A gentle and matronly voice asks, and I groan a little. I'm in pain from every limb, and I'm positive I must have grown and then broken a few more. Also terribly hungry, and with an absolutely monstrous headache, I tell her, trying to be polite, despite the fact that every word made me feel as if my head was used for an anvil. Yes, I noticed how skinny you are as well, which is why I've put you on the IV. I must ask, what happened to your eyes? She asks, sounding hesitant. The horse paces around slightly, her voice following it. Perhaps it is a centaur, or a culture that spends their lives on horses. I've heard of stranger. A rather horrible spell was cast on them. It caused them to build up energy until they detonated, which would have been fatal. So I had to tear them out myself, but was vindicated in such an act when I threw them away, and they detonated with enough force to shatter boulders. I slowly explained to her, and the horse stops as if in shock. Definitely a centaur, then. "You had to tear them out yourself?" she asks, her voice shaking in horror. "Well, when all you have is a rusted knife, then all you have is a rusted knife, my dear," I continue, before mentally kicking myself. If I drop too many hints as to who I am, then I am completely sunk. A rusted knife? Oh, dear Celestia, what kind of monsters would do such a thing? She asks, her voice shaking. Well, would you look at that? Sympathy. I haven't encountered that in a while. It must be a trick. Sorry. I just have this wonderful talent for making sworn blood enemies. They tend to swear to hunt me until the end of time. It has made life interesting, though. I admit, by way of apology for her discomfort. Her breathing pattern has changed, and it sounds a bit like she's in shock. Then, before I have any idea what's going on, I'm being levitated through the air, completely exposed, and the centaur quickly dashes from one side of the bed to another. Oh, thank goodness. I thought you had a cutie mark in such a thing. Count your blessings that you're still a blankie, she says, gently sounding massively relieved, as my mind turns around quickly. Cutie mark? Wait, she mentioned an IVing thing earlier. Well, I am a child, and I sounded very young too, so time for some questions. I'll ignore the nudity for now. Cutie mark? You also mentioned an IV thing. I stated quietly and a little shyly. I hate admitting to ignorance. Well, dearie, when a young pony finds out what they're truly good at and love to do, a symbol appears on their flank to signify this revelation and guide their life towards happiness. As for an IV, it is a needle with a hose that's connected to a bag, which doctors like me use to feed or give medicines to patients who can't eat or take medicine normally. I've put in basic nutrition fluids, as well as some antibiotics, to clear out any infection from those terrible stab wounds on your stomach. She explains as she calmly lowered me onto the bed and the blankets were placed over me gently. Ah, thank you for explaining, I say politely, I say as politely as I can, as my mind turns around. A young pony? So more horse than human, or horses with the intelligence of a human. It would explain my arm, stump, and fur. It would also explain why my rebirth was incomplete. The sheer difference between races meant that the adjustment took the energy intended for the aging and healing for the rebirth itself. Still, if there is such a massive difference and my energy is still there, then I probably look like an abuse victim. Mix in being a child, and they'll probably be treading on eggshells around me too. Excuse me, little one, but may I have your name so that I could maybe find your parents or report to the Royal Guard? The doctor asks, and I grimace a little. This will be awkward to explain. Well, I don't really have a name anymore, I admit, and I can feel her incredulous and concerned look. Well, what happened was that I was constantly attacked through naming magic, meaning that my name was used to cut me up and pummel me, so I shattered my association with my name. Now I can't remember it anymore, nor can anything remember me ever having it as my name. Whatever it was, I could have it as my name again, but I can't remember it. I explain, and although I can't see her, I can tell her jaw has dropped a little. Or rather, I hoped it has, because that would be funny. Sweet Celestia, I've only ever heard rumors of such use for naming spells. I use them just to keep track of patients, but to mercilessly attack a pony until they have to sever the name is just... disgusting! What monster did that to you?" she asked, starting to sound well and truly shocked. I shrugged casually before tilting my head towards her. "I don't know. It seems that morals and the law just don't apply to my detractors when they're trying to do me harm. I never even met the pony using name magic against me," I tell her calmly. I'm being careful to watch my words and replace person with pony. "You poor little heart. What about your parents or family? Surely they must have shielded you from some of this horror," she asked, sounding as if she was soon to pass out. Well, why not go for broke right? I've been honest so far, so let's stay that way. "They tried, but then they were threatened as well. So I left, hoping that my enemies would stay focused on me and me alone. Most of them did, but not enough to spare them. Now all I can do is live for them until the end of time if I must." I admit, getting more personal than I intended, and it's out before I could stop myself. Just perfect. I never wanted to admit that. Now she has to die. Now she is hugging me. And I appear to actually have 2 more limbs sticking out of my back. I can feel them being compressed slightly. It hurts a little, so it's obvious my new limbs are broken. Just perfect. "Oh, you poor little angel," she said, nuzzling me gently, and I lean into it. In my defense, it feels very nice, and I'm used to such things happening, so I relish the pleasant moments, even if they are assassination attempts. "Now, you need to get some rest before we can take you off the drip," she says, and I assume it's something to do with the IV thing. "I'm going to put a bit of anesthetic into the IV to help you sleep, and don't worry, I'll be contacting the guards soon enough," she explains, and a spike of concern wells up inside me before I force it down. There is literally nothing I can do about it without digging my own grave, so I try not to worry. After all, panic is the small death that brings complete destruction. There is a slight tingle of magic, and for a few moments my head clears. I use the opening to cast a 4th sight spell to take a mental picture of the place. This is... Well, of course it's alien. I'm in an alternate reality. Still, I'm being held by a soft blue unicorn with a red mane and a red cross emblazoned on her rear. I'm in a very bright room with gaudy designs on the walls in the shape of what look like foals and horses, pegasi and unicorns over and over again. The bed I'm on is many times my new size. It has what looks like a down mattress. It has the whitest sheets I've ever seen with a grey cover, and huge fluffed up pillows just in front of me that look softer than clouds themselves. As for myself, I am a tiny and almost unnaturally thin ash grey like Pegasus. My hundreds of scars are still present, and my new wings are shredded. My stringy iron grey hair is now mottled brown and in clumped filthy dreadlocks. Actually, there's also soot-like stains across the bed and pillows where I had laid down on. There's a pair of bandages around my torso where the knives had embedded themselves, and I also have a small needle jammed up into my arm. Attached to the needle is a hose up to a couple of clear bags of material I've never seen before, with liquids inside them. These bags are hanging from a metal stand, with what look like black wheels of another material I've never seen before. Her horn is glowing with a pale green light. There's also another needle with a glass chamber. There is a plunger on it, and it is inserting another liquid into the bag through a small tube connected to a chamber of the same material, which has a mesh and banded metal coating with the needle sticking through the mesh. My flash of image came and went, and I relished it. I was completely and irrevocably unrecognizable. I smiled in relief as I felt magic surround me, and I feel myself gently lowered onto the pillow, with special care being given to the position of my wings. I felt the effects of the sleeping drug further, and I drift off after giving only a token resistance. Only one thought echoed through my mind. I am finally safe. Maybe.